There's a huge power shift happening right now. But it's not on some battlefield. It's happening inside the code that pretty much runs our entire world. It's a movement called AI sovereignty. And it all comes down to one really simple but incredibly important question. Who gets to control the artificial intelligence that shapes our lives?
So here's what we're going to break down. First, we'll get a handle on what AI sovereignty actually is. Then, we'll dig into why so many countries are racing to get it. We're going to look at the actual blueprint for building a national AI, see how it could change your everyday life, and then we're going to face the incredible price of all this digital independence.
Okay, so let's start with the absolute basics. Before we get into the why, we need to be really clear on what we're even talking about when we say AI sovereignty.
Just think about it for a second. The apps on your phone, the search engine you just used, the algorithm that's going to recommend what you watch tonight. Where do they all come from? Who owns that code? And, maybe more importantly, who owns the data that makes them so smart? This question, right here, is what's pushing entire nations to act.
And here is the answer. AI sovereignty is when a country makes a decision to build its own AI completely from the ground up. And we're not just talking about software here. It means using computer chips that are physically inside its borders, training the AI on data from its own citizens, and having its own local people build and run the whole thing.
Really, at its core, this is basically a declaration of technological independence. It's all about building a digital world where you don't have to depend on another country's tech giants or play by their rules.
So that leads to the really big question, right? Why? What's making governments pour billions and billions of dollars into such a massive project? Well, it turns out the reasons are pretty serious, and they really come down to 4 key things.
First off, national security. If you control your own AI, you control your own critical digital infrastructure. Simple as that. Second, data security. It's about making sure your personal info, your financial data, your health records, stay safe inside the country. Third is all about culture. An AI trained on local data, well, it gets the unique languages, the history, the slang, and finally, the economy. Building all this tech, it creates a ton of high-paying jobs right at home.
All right, so we get the why. The motivation is clear, but how on earth does a country actually build its own AI from scratch? It's a huge task, but there's a surprisingly clear blueprint starting to emerge.
It all kicks off with the physical stuff. Step 1, you have to get your hands on those specialized computer chips, the ones that can handle all the heavy lifting. Step 2, you build massive, super secure data centers to put all that hardware in. Then you need the fuel, collecting huge amounts of local data. And finally, step 4, that's where the magic happens. You train the AI model by feeding it all of that uniquely local information.
What's really wild is who's actually involved in this. This isn't just some government project. It is a massive national effort. The government might put up the money and make the rules, sure. But you've got hardware companies making the chips, software engineers writing the code, and energy companies literally powering the whole operation. And the most critical piece of the puzzle? The citizens. It's the public information that you create that actually teaches the AI.
And this whole thing follows a pretty clear playbook. It usually starts when leaders look around and see how much they depend on foreign tech, and they identify that as a risk. From there, they set aside a ton of money. Then comes a really crucial step. They pass new laws, often called data localization laws, to make sure data stays inside their borders. Then they team up with local experts, and finally they roll out the finished product for everyone to use.
Okay, so I know this all sounds very high level, right? Geopolitics, big government stuff. But what does a sovereign AI actually mean for your life day to day? Well, the impact might be a lot more direct than you think.
For starters, you'd get to use language tools that actually understand your local dialect. Your slang. You could see way better, more personalized public services, from government agencies to your doctor. Local businesses would get tools that are built from the ground up to understand national laws and regulations. And here's the big one. You'd have more peace of mind about your privacy, knowing your data is stored right here at home.
And that right there is the core promise. It's this idea that your most sensitive information is protected by your country's laws, keeping it out of the hands of foreign companies or even foreign governments. It's all about digital self-determination. But all this independence, it comes at a very steep price. Going after AI sovereignty is loaded with huge challenges and some very real risks. So let's just talk about the money. $10 billion. And get this, that's just the starting price for the computer hardware alone. That's before you've even built a single building or paid a single salary. The cost is just astronomical.
And then you've got the power bill. The energy these things use is staggering. A single large AI data center can chew through as much electricity in 1 year as 100,000 homes. That puts an unbelievable strain on a country's power grid, not to mention its water supply for cooling.
And beyond that sticker shock, there are all these hidden costs. You've got shortages of the highly trained engineers you need to build this stuff. You've got the very real risk of cutting your country off from global innovation, basically falling behind. And that leads to maybe the biggest risk of all. You could end up with a sovereign AI that's just not very good.
This creates what experts are calling the quality gap. A brand new homegrown AI might really struggle to keep up. The big global AIs have a huge advantage. They learn from way more data and from the top researchers all over the world. So a sovereign AI, especially at first, might be slower or less accurate or just not as capable.
So that leaves us with the ultimate question. You have nations weighing security, culture, and their economy on one side against these immense costs, the strain on resources, and the real risk of being left in the technological dust. Is complete technological independence actually worth that price? That is the trillion-dollar question that countries all over the world are desperately trying to answer right now.